in life, business, and beyond. So if we're on the road or, at the computer running our businesses, we like to feel like we're prepared. So how is that something that you can do for the entrepreneur that sometimes feels like they're drowning?
Wow, that question just resonates with me so much. I could when you say drowning, I think back to the time where I'm from New Jersey, so I'm from a little town just outside of New York called Hoboken. And so I remember maybe 10 or 12 years ago, my accountant brought me into his office. Maybe it was around now, maybe it was around tax time. And I remember being so stressed out just
Mm.
about everything that was going on around me. I was running a little video marketing company, going around to small businesses, and I was doing the sales, I was doing the editing, I had an assistant maybe, and I was probably on the verge of tears. And my accountant being very not headstrong, but being stoic and being just bold in the face of adversity. He turns around his computer and he starts to show me this CRM that he started to play with. And that was my entrance into this whole world of business tech. And so I found a solution in business tech that merged some of my original interests was in business processes. I'm a big Michael Gerber fan. Are you familiar with the Michael Gerber and the E-Myth? A lot of your listeners might be familiar with the systemization of businesses. And so whenever I think of a business owner who is stressed out and at wit's end, I think back to this idea of, have you systematized your processes to the degree that you can sit back and watch as your systems unfold in front of you? And
Hmm.
I'd love to get back into that some more, if that's what you want to chat about. But to me, the level of stress that a business owner is experiencing at any one moment is directly proportional to the amount of systemization that they still need to invest some energy and time into. It's really just about working on your business, not just in your business.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that. When you were presented with this information, did you start seeking it out of excitement or was there a little bit of desperation, which is fine because anything that can motivate you in a certain direction that's prosperous, it's fair game, right?
Yeah, I mean, desperation, I could definitely relate to any business owner who is feeling that, because it's really hard to run a business. A lot of people, not every business owner gets to go to Wharton Business School. Not every business owner has Mark Cuban as a mentor. A lot of business owners are from the streets. They're blue collar people. They're a barber. They're a chef. They are and it doesn't even have to be a blue collar person. You could be a white, traditionally called a white collar person, and still be stressed out, because the running a business is completely different than the service that the business delivers.
Yeah,
Like being a chef is not the same as running a restaurant, and
right.
yeah, and doing a tax return is not the same as having a tax practice. And so every business owner needs to recognize that. And if there was one takeaway that your listeners should really take home with you, is that if you're really experiencing this degree of stress, understand that most business owners are that former technician, that barber, that chef, that accountant, that marketer, that musician, that then starts their own business. And it's okay to feel this stress because you weren't trained in that. Training to be a chef is not training to run a restaurant. And so if you're being overwhelmed, if you're feeling stressed out, understand that that's completely normal, because you're not doing the same job right now.
You get thrown into wearing all of these hats that you didn't realize you had signed up to wear, but you have to get to a certain point until you even realize what you need and can delegate.
They're in the hat store, and they don't even realize that they've got 10 hats stacked up above their head now, and they're like invisible hats. But they're there, and the weight of those hats is enormous because it might be your name on the door, but you're still stuck in this technician mindset, and you don't know how to read your numbers, you don't know how to do your bookkeeping, you don't know good marketing techniques, you don't know all of the technology, you don't know how to handle staff. And so now it becomes, well, what do you do about that
Yeah.
now?
You don't know what
Right.
you don't know. So then what do you do? What's your advice?
Oh, well, oh, my advice. Geez. So, I feel like I'm just like that like piano teacher that's one page ahead of their student in the beginner piano book, maybe. But the my overall advice is just be humble and recognize, like you said earlier, you don't know what you don't know. And so I always like to frame that you're on this entrepreneurial journey, and if you just close your mind and think that there's some goal way in the distance in the future, maybe that goal is retirement, or maybe that goal is a certain amount of savings, or that goal is a house, or even my friend said, my goal, this is my friend speaking, my goal was to be able to ski 100 days a year. And so that's a great goal, right? To really think about that. And so when you have that goal, you're on this journey, you're on this road, you're on this path. There's entrepreneurs in front of you on that journey who are closer to getting their goals. They're better at this game. They've learned a little bit more. And then there's people that are racing right next to you, and they're huffing it, and they have the same level experience. And then there's people behind you. And so always be willing and seek out those people that are in front of you and listen to them, and don't take their advice personally. And I was very fortunate to have some mentors that were really hard on me,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and they just made me feel just so small and so inexperienced, because I was. And you need that, and you really need sometimes a bullheaded person. But then there's people right next to you that are going to be so those people are not going to let you cry on their shoulders.
Yeah.
Uh, they're going to give you tough love. But then there's the people that are next to you in this entrepreneurial journey, that they're going to be the ones that might let you sort of cry and weep and feel desperate, and let you dump all of your anxiety onto them, because they're going through it right there at that same time. And so they're empathetic to what you're feeling like. And then I feel like there's this responsibility that you also need to be a mentor to those that are earlier in their entrepreneurial journey, so that you can always have this reality check that you don't know what you don't know from the people that are in front of you. There's a bunch of people who are living through this with you right now. And then you have all of these people that wish that they could be where you are right now. They wish that
Hmm.
they had that stress right now, and they wish that they were feeling, and they see you as the success story, that you got your business going, that you have a few clients maybe, and they're just beginning their journey. And so I think that's a really good way to just put things into context.
What kind of solutions can you offer a person? It doesn't even matter if they're just beginning their journey, no matter where they're at in their business phase. How do you help?
So yeah, aside from having some wise quips and some little takeaways, what we do every day at our company is we sit at the nexus. Our company's called Segwik, and so any company is like, almost, my brother played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. It's like a company is like 100-sided dice, or 100-sided box, that you could
Yeah.
look at it from all these different angles. You could look at it from human resources. You could look at it from an inventory perspective. You could look at it from sales perspective. You could look at it from a marketing perspective. You could look at it from a budgeting perspective. There's all these perspectives. And so where we like to be, and what we think that we could be the most effective in helping companies, is this this sort of Venn diagram of overlapping the marketing with the operations, with the technology and the customer experience. And so when you start to overlap those, what we start to picture is what we call this customer journey.
Okay.
And we believe that any company can fix a lot of what ails them if they begin to focus on their customer journey. And what I mean by that is that if you've never thought about this idea before, well, every business owner knows when a customer walks in the door, how to deal with them and how to sell to them. But that customer had part of their journey before you even knew that they existed. They had this part of the journey where they were seeking out your product or seeking out something similar. They were hunting. They established that they had this need for your product. But before that, the customer didn't even know that they needed your product. And
Hmm.
so there was almost this, so there's this education portion. And if you go earlier, then the customer didn't need your product. So the customer doesn't need your product, then they need your product, but they aren't aware of you. But then they become aware of you, and then maybe you get to meet with them, and then maybe you get to present with to them. And if they're interested, maybe you get to present a proposal to them, and then maybe you get to work with them, and then maybe you deliver a great service. And so there's this whole journey that goes on, whether you think about it in that way or not. And I urge people to start thinking about that in a big way, because when you start to lay that all out, and then you start to put that on a whiteboard and figure out, well, at this step of the journey, this should happen. And at this step of the journey, the customer should experience this. And at this step, this should happen and this should happen. Then you're really building out the entire blueprint of how your company should operate from your perspective. And so that's our superpower, is building the most elegant, high quality customer experiences, and imposing that into the digital realm so that the digital tools hold it all together so that you could run those plays over
Yeah.
and over again.
What's your biggest challenge when you're laying all of that out?
Oh, the biggest challenge. So, um, there's a lot of companies with some very complex service deliveries.
Okay.
Uh, and so you take a company, uh, like like a marketing agency or a construction company or even an accounting practice. I call these complex service providers,
Okay.
which they're delivering a service, whereas you go to Amazon or you go to an e-commerce or some sort of website to buy a widget, and you could see, you go on, you just buy something, and it gets shipped in the mail. Now, that's a relatively easy customer journey to explain, whereas somebody like the lawyer, somebody like the marketer, somebody like the accountant,
Hmm.
there's all of these steps that go into how a marketer might even win the business. So there's this proposal step, there's the sales step, there's the marketing step. You got to drive people to a website. You have to remind them to meet for your sales meeting. You have to have your pitch deck going, and you have to do follow-ups because they're interviewing other people. And then if you win the business, then the complexity might explode from there, because building a website is complex, or doing a tax return is complex. And
Right.
so uh, being somebody's legal advisor is very complex, drawing up contracts for people. And so when we go to map those kinds of customer journeys, we have to be ready we have to be prepared to understand that if you're a marketing agency, there might be 10 or 12 or 15 or more different services that all have their own sequence of steps. Or if you're a law firm or you're an accountant, there might be all these different steps that the customer goes through once they become a customer, that you now need to be ready to put into a system, because you don't want your process to just break at the time when the customer says, yes, I'll move forward with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. What could a client do to make your job easier in helping them?
Sure. Yeah. What comes to mind first is just um be open-minded, be have your imagination, have your thinking cap on, because when it's time to meet with us, there's nothing's off the table. Every idea that you've ever had, we want to hear about. We want to know how you want to run your business. Like what I'm getting at is companies do this part the wrong way. Companies are almost like beaten up by the options that they've all tried. You have these companies that have tried this tool, they've tried Salesforce, they've tried HubSpot, oh, they have MailChimp or they have Calendly, and they're stressed out. They've tried stitching them together, and these tools have failed them before. And so when a customer comes to us, oftentimes they're downtrodden, they're beaten up, they think that their company just it's like a wild animal that can't be tamed. And there is no company that is untamable if you're willing to lay it out and understand how you want to run your business. And so if you can come with a clear understanding of how you want to run your business instead of what those tools have asked you to do. A lot of those tools force you into those tools' way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to unwind that. I just say, hey, there is nothing there is no pre-assumptions about how you're going to operate. We're going to lay out your dream flow, and then we're going to back into that with how we're going to make that happen.
When it comes to your downtime, what do you like to do to recharge yourself so you're serving, your clients better, that you're a more productive person when it's time to do all of that?
Oh, well, good question. Yeah, I have to remind myself to take some downtime, and my mom and dad are good at that. They see how hard I work, and they just say, "Hey, have you taken some time off recently?" I did just get back from Colombia. That was a great trip. And so I was in Colombia for 2 weeks. I got to ride some bikes through the mountains, which was really great. Not necessarily mountain biking there, just sort of it's just naturally mountainous. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's fun. But I have gotten into mountain biking. That was my everybody had their COVID hobby, and so
Yeah.
that was good. But I do play a lot of music. I play guitar. I play drums. And yeah, so I have my creative hobbies, and one of my goals I mentioned earlier, my friend who has wants to just ski 100 days a year. One of my goals is to just have my recording studio back in my office one day.
Yeah. So do
Yeah.
you just practice, or are you with a band? Do you perform? What's
Oh,
that
that
like?
would be great. My performance days I'm not going to say they're behind me, but I guess maybe they're in front of me. I
Yeah.
used to play in bands. I was playing in some pretty good bands. I'm having a reunion tour with a band that I was in. I shouldn't say tour, a reunion gig. So I was in a band. We were called Station 23, and
Okay.
it was a female front person, uh, acoustic rock type of music where the only electric instrument was the bass. And so we had a really interesting sound where it was yeah, modern rock in the yeah, with the sort of hypnotic jazz bluesy twist, because a lot of the musicians were jazz blues trained, but now we bring in folk rock vocals and folk rock chords, and you get this interesting blend. And so we're going to be playing, it's not scheduled, but look for us playing in October in the Chicago area.
So you do have some original music. Do you do covers too? What's your,
I had a cover band I've always been in cover bands
yeah,
as long as
yeah.
I can remember. Uh, but this band we do originals and a couple of covers, but we put out an album maybe 15 years ago. It's on Spotify. You could look for Station 23. It's a pretty good record. I was the producer of it, and there's a great little story behind the production of this record. Can I tell
Yes,
it?
please, please.
Yeah. So um when we went to make this record, it must have been maybe 2007. And my partner in the band, her name was Erica. She had connected with some fella who was going to fund the production of this record. And this was still a little bit before everybody had their at-home studios and things like that. And especially even now, people don't have the space to do a live recording with drums and cello. And so we wanted everything to be very organic sounding. So we wanted a live studio with a real piano. So we found a studio down on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, right by Katz's Deli, if you're keeping score, New Yorkers, listeners out there. And we go in, and this fellow was gonna, pay for the recording, yeah, and the production of this record. And we set up, we tune, and we start to play. And within just a moment, this fella started to just kind of dictate how, oh, well, try this or do this or do this, or hey, you should play like this, or you. And we're like, oh. So we're trying to be courteous, so we kind of take a little bit, tip, like, but we thought this fellow was just going to be an observer. And what we come to find out was he thought that he was coming in to dictate what we all
Oh
were going to be,
no.
what we all were going to be playing. And that was a really uncomfortable moment all of a sudden. And so we all huddle up, and we say, like, well, what do we do about this guy? And we are like, well, he was going to pay for this studio time, and we're just a bunch of broke musicians at this time. And so we all, agreed that, well, we're already here. And so I think I was the only one with a credit card at the time. So I put the whole studio session on my credit card. And we had to have we kicked this fella out, and it, it almost got into a little bit of a physical thing, because this guy was mad, obviously. And so we ended up just cutting our own record. And within just an hour, you could see this arc of tension as you realized what we were in the midst of. And then what do we do about this, to this amazing feeling of relief that we were able to just settle this scenario for the better. And then we went off and we produced this amazing record.
Wow,
Yeah.
interesting. Communication is key. Another lesson of communication.
Well, and that's another thing I love to talk about is I think it's rare that business owners come into business with this artistic background, like I've been fortunate to have. And so I'll be the first one to say that most artists are really terrible business people.
Mhm.
You get the people that you think of that are iconic. You get the Jay-Z's and the Beyoncés and the Puffys, and people that you might think of that are iconic musicians that have been able to, or artists that have been able to, grapple with the whole business world. But that's very rare. Most artists that I've met, they just want to do their art. They want to be creative. They
Mhm.
want to be friendly. They're not cutthroat. They're very team players, and those are a lot of qualities that are opposite of what you need in business. But I think that the artists have so much to offer in other ways that the CEOs of the world and the business leaders of the world are really missing. And that it's that creative sense about problem solving. It's this creative sense about not falling in love with your first output like they train you in music school. Go write 1,000 melodies.
Yeah.
Just like dump it out. And so these exercises that you go through in the creation of art, uh, I feel have really served me well in terms of being a business leader.
Hmm.
Uh, I go out of my way. They say, well, why are you trying to fit a square peg into a round hole? It's a square peg, it's a round hole. They should never come near each other. But that's the whole point of business, is trying to figure out, well, let's take this idea from somewhere else and try to fit this idea here. Or let's take this idea, and how does that idea fit if we tried to do it this way? Or how does this idea fit if we try to do it this way? And I think all of those sensibilities come from having a creative background.
I think that's a great way to look at it, because if you don't ever experiment, then where do you ever grow? If you don't try to mess up, fail forward, if you will, you know.
Exactly, exactly.
All right. Where can people go to get in touch with you if they're ready to supercharge their productivity?
Please just come over to segwik.com, segwik.com, book some time on our calendar, or just reach out to us on LinkedIn. That's Pete Romano. You'll see me, founder of Segwik, and just ping me directly. We'd love to hear from you.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for spending some time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Trina.
Come back anytime. And if you're following along, be sure that you follow and subscribe at Run Radio Station and listen online at runradio.net.